All right, we are here at my art studio, and I am with Aleda Bliss, who is going to be interviewing me on this episode.
Table flip.
She just took a look at my artwork for my upcoming solo show, Everything Is Now, and, well, that's what we're going to do. Now, you looked at the artwork, and you can ask or say whatever you want.
No, how do you feel about spoiler alerts?
I'm fine with that.
Because it's still, the paint is literally still wet on some of these pieces.
It is.
I want to start by asking you about the title.
Okay.
Everything Is Now.
Yeah.
And where that comes from, if that's something that has lived with you, if those are words that have lived with you previous to this work coming out, or if it's emerged in the process of creating it.
That phrase emerged while I was painting. I mean, the experience of painting is you're in this little world where you are listening to music, and I'm sort of solving painting problems, and your mind sort of drifts to different ideas, and it's a place where I give myself permission to let my brain go to different places. And I started thinking, I've always been, I wouldn't say obsessed with the concept of time, but I've always been very aware of time. I remember being 7 and thinking, wow, I'm a human and I'm in the 7-year-old phase and I'm going to be an adult one day. What's that going to be like? Yeah. I can't wait. And I was very aware of time. But I think my viewpoint on time was the past and the future. It was as if they were an actual thing. And it's hard to explain. Like, I kind of had this sense that they were this thing. And I came to the realization that the past and the future are non-existent. Everything is right now.
Yeah.
Everything. The whole universe right now for us is right now between you and I in this moment. And that is scary and powerful. It's not something I think a lot about, but it was a realization I had. And I wonder if it came through in the artwork.
Well, funny you should say that. I was sitting there in the sun, in a square of sun with these paintings all around me. And I want to put a circle around that 7 thing, because I also have a really distinct memory of being 7 and that being like a turning point where it was like I could see the future and the past at the same time. I think of that as a very magical time, and I see it in kids often where there's like this availability to kind of the door in front and the door behind, which means you're present, you're right there. I was sitting, and I think we did catch this, I was sitting there in the sun and I was feeling these paintings around me, and you know, some of these are landscapes of my childhood. I'm looking at this painting that has the Dairy Joy sign on it.
So great.
There's so much memory in this. The roads that I grew up in Vermont, like this is the landscape of my childhood. Okay. And I feel the future coming through them so strongly. You may remember when I first came into this studio, when you interviewed me, I saw the painting of the tree, the solitary tree on the plain.
Yeah.
And I asked you where it had come from, or who it was, where it was, because I was struck by this memory of myself in Joshua Tree in California. And that was sort of like a future, present, past collision for me.
Okay.
So I think it's working.
All right. Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I wonder for you how do I say this? What's the relationship between structure? Because I don't paint. This is a medium that I've yet to dip my toes into. You know, you're plotting out the lines, presumably on the canvas. What's the interplay between the structure of doing that and the surprise of maybe a memory or something that hasn't happened or an image that comes through?
Well, it's changed over the years. I've been painting for about 10 years seriously. And when I first started, because I have a background in a very right-brained, like project management approach to things, everything was very structured. Like I had a plan. I would do many sketches. I used to call them dates. I was dating with a concept to see if we wanted to spend time together. I would be doing very detailed underpaintings that were, and then I would do more layers, and it was a very structured process, and that gave me one result. As I gained more confidence with those skills, I started to loosen up a little bit, and I was surprised at what came out. And so different things would come out on the canvas depending upon, I guess, really what was going on. When I was living in Chicago, it's a very industrial, structural. There's a lot of old buildings there, and things came out looking that way. My paintings all came out looking that way. As soon as I moved to Vermont, I hadn't painted for about 6 months, and as soon as I started painting, everything came out bright and colorful. And so I guess it's like a certain percentage of the process that's structural, and then there is this percentage that is just something that is subconscious, that just comes out.
Do you notice as you're walking around particular colors starting to draw you, or shapes, or how much of that is subconscious, do you think, and how much is conscious?
I don't get drawn towards color. I get drawn more towards shapes, structures, light, and things of that nature.
Yeah. The texture of things. More
the relationships between shapes and lights and darks, values.
And you listen to music while you paint?
Oh, absolutely. I listen to music when I'm doing everything.
Yeah. And does that? I mean, it does. Of course, it affects everything. It's like you're putting things in the blender, and what comes out is.
It does affect it. I've told this story before, but certainly when I was in Chicago, I remember I would look at paintings, and actually this was more when I first started painting, because I think my brain was approaching painting in a different way. It's almost like when you're experiencing things as a child, like it's very impactful. Things can be very impactful because you're still developing. I remember when I was developing as a painter, I could tell, looking at a painting, what song I was listening to at a part of a song. Like it was so embedded. That doesn't really happen anymore, which is interesting. But yeah, it was very, very embedded in the painting process.
Where did the painting come from for you? Because you've had this other identity as an engineer. Is that correct? Well,
I have a degree in engineering, but I went into sales, technical sales. But I was a very creative kid. I was painting, drawing, putting on plays, all this stuff. I think we mentioned this when we did our other interview.
Shared childhood.
But at some point, I decided. Well, first of all, I started getting picked on a little bit for being like the artsy kid, which wasn't the end of the world. But I'm like, I don't really need that. And then I also fell in love with science. I absolutely loved science because I'm so curious about the world. And when I discovered that someone was actually thinking about how everything worked and I remember learning about electrons and protons. In fifth grade with Miss Letitia, I couldn't believe that, and I was so relieved there were other people out in the world that were thinking about how everything works. So I kind of pursued a more technical approach to the world. But that creative part of me is definitely hardwired. So it would come out in different ways, either through ways that I would be dealing with problems or creating solutions in whatever I was doing, or it would reveal itself in me being really frustrated in my role, where other people were able to do these things, and I can't do those things. I got to do these things because I'm the project manager. And I just decided at some point, like, I need to explore this creative being inside of me. And for some reason, I just decided the way I need to do this is I need to become a competent oil painter. It was very specific. And I just started learning how to oil paint.
Do you remember what that moment was? And do you have a sense of where painter came from? Was that something that you had seen as a kid or at some point in your life where that role struck you? Because you're speaking more like holistically of creativity and artistry and the child's imagination, but painter is a specific identity.
Yeah, I think I saw this. I saw this painter's work. Well, no, it was probably before that. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I don't really know. It definitely was. I had fooled around with paint in. I took some watercolor classes. I took some acrylic painting classes, and I don't know. There was just, I don't remember the moment, but there was a moment where I was like, okay, yeah, this is something I need to do. Like I felt like this was, before I die, I definitely have to do this. And I thought that it would be something I could do on the side. And then I realized, well, I really can't. I'm going to really have to give up other things in terms of like what I was doing for a job. And I'm like, Rick, are you serious about this? And I'm like, yeah, I am serious. And so I just did it.
Wow. It was pulling you in some sense, it sounds like demanding that you do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how everything always works with me. I have no idea why. Like things just precipitate and it's like, okay, Rick, you're doing this next. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what I'm doing. It's not like I'm changing every week. It doesn't happen that way. But, every 7 years in my life or something like that, 5, 7, 10 years, I will have something just tells me, yep, time to wrap this up. And this is your new thing. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I don't know who's telling me it, but
you're getting the assignment from
someone. I am definitely feel that I'm getting assignments.
Do you feel like you get assignments from the work itself? I feel often when I write a song that I don't even yet have the data on what it's telling me, and I'll listen to it a year later or 2 years later and I'll see a line of like, oh, I was kind of picking up cues from myself ahead of myself. Speaking of the future and the past, do you ever look at a piece that you've already moved through and think, there was something of my future in this piece?
No, I wouldn't say that I feel that. I would definitely say that I look at things much differently when I look back at them and look at stuff from the past. Sometimes I'm thinking, well, yeah, that one wasn't really as great as I thought it was. And then some of them I'm like, wow, that's a really great painting. I wish I hadn't sold it. How
do you feel about having, knowing that something is somewhere in someone's house?
I love it. When I first started, I didn't like it. I felt like everything was my babies and how can I let them go? And then as I built more confidence in my ability to create more babies, I can let them go. So they're mine while I'm working on them. And then as soon as they're done, I feel like they've been released to the world. There's only 3 paintings that I've ever decided that I need to keep these. 2 of them I have, 1 of them I did sell.
What was it about those pieces that were telling you that they needed to stay with you? And what was the moment with the 3rd piece where it said, I'm ready to go?
I don't know. They're just different. One of them is downstairs in my bedroom, and it's just, I don't know if it's that great of a painting, but it's of an amusement park ride at night, and it's just really unique, and I just think it's really unique and special, and I don't know. I don't even think it's that well done. There's just something about it. I'm like, I'm keeping this.
Was there a moment when you were painting it? Is there place in it of where you were?
Meaning
when you were creating it, does it encapsulate something about your life at the time?
Well, it's sort of an amusement park ride, and I'm obsessed with carnivals and amusement parks. So since I was a little kid,
yeah, there's something there. I mean, that's a huge memory. Like you say,
right.
You say amusement park, and it's immediately memory for me in my mind.
It's a whole thing. I did a series of paintings, of like amusement park rides, and stuff from Coney Island. And so this was part of that. Most of them, some of them weren't very good. But yeah, I don't know. Just that's with that one. And then there's another one. I did a series of paintings based on photographs that my dad took in 1953 when he was in the Army. We had all these slides. So I did a series of paintings based on those. And one of them I have here. That's the other one that I sold.
Was another from that series.
Yeah, from that series. And it was, love this painting. It was a photograph that my dad took inside a sideshow tent at Oktoberfest in Munich, Germany in 1953. And it's this young girl in a sequin bikini with a snake and a carnival barker yelling at her. And she has
the snake over her shoulders. Wow.
And the colors are great. And I was able to capture the reflection of the scales and you can just feel the carnival barker pointing and yelling, and it's great. So I know who owns it. So I don't know.
You're keeping your eye on it.
I'm thinking about reaching out to him and seeing if but
you
whatever.
Still have the slide, the picture.
Yeah, we have this. My family has the slides. Yeah.
Do you work from photographs often?
I always work from photographs.
Always work from photographs.
Yeah. So I was trying to move away from that because I thought that it was lame or whatever. So I really started doing plein air, like going out. I took a class. I went to Connecticut for 2 weeks and did this plein air class in, I don't remember, somewhere in Connecticut, Old Lyme. And I just figured, I'm not doing this. It's just technically too much of a pain in the neck. The light's changing. It's uncomfortable. I just never liked it. So I'm like, well, I'm going to stick with photographs and I'm going to do it with confidence. And, everything is, other than those ones that my dad did, everything is based on photographs that I took.
That you took.
Yeah. So I took all of the photograph, the source material is stuff that I took.
So there's a sort of a role behind the role. Like there's the painter and then behind that, there's the photographer.
There is the photographer. Yeah.
There's a lot of movement in these pieces. I was sitting very still in the sun over there and there is there's like this forward motion in them. There's a stillness too, but there's a lot of movement.
Okay.
Which I think is interesting that it's now, they've come through 2 capturings from their live aspect, a photograph and then a painting.
Yeah.
I wonder what happens in that in-between space. Do you sit with the photo? Do you print them out? Do you have, how are they?
I spent a lot of time. Unfortunately, I spent a lot of time picking the images. It takes a while. I go through tons of imagery. I will do sketches to see what is, and a lot of them, there's some failures. I had some paintings that I'll start them. I had one that I started. I was really excited about it. And then I'm like, this is not going to work. It's not going to work as a painting. So I just painted over it and moved on. But usually I can tell that pretty quickly. But I spent a lot of time sorting through images and printing, cropping. It's a big part of it.
And then you're going to sit with these pieces and name them, presumably.
I will be naming them, yes. Yeah.
What does that feel like?
I usually don't spend too much.
You don't?
No, I don't get too hung up on it. Sometimes the name comes to me, and sometimes it's a struggle, but I don't get too hung up on that. I'm curious, so is naming the song a big part of the creative process? Is that a big deal?
I think it really matters from in me, when I see an album list or I see a title of anything. I mean, that's why I wanted to talk about the title Everything Is Now to begin with, because the title is often the first encounter that you have with something.
Yeah.
And words are very visceral for me. And so, yeah, like if I'm looking at the back, if I pick a record up out of a bin at a shop, I'm looking at the titles like I would be looking at the chapters of a book and sort of seeing like what are the images that this person is pulling out as the important feelings that they're trying to invoke, that's giving me a clue about what I can expect what it may be, there may be a contradiction in the material itself, but they are like little breadcrumbs.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the way I experience it with the paintings, though, is people are experiencing the painting first. They're actually seeing the visual, and then they would look at the image. So I guess so I can see what you're saying. How if you're experiencing this collection of titles before you hear the music, which I guess you oftentimes do with music, but I think for the
not always if you're experiencing something live and
on the radio,
totally, and that's the difference between. Well, yeah, I think it works either way. You know, you can experience something and then you have your own visceral reaction to it, and then you hear, okay, this is what the artist has called it. And that tells a story itself. I don't like to read the backs of books too thoroughly before I read them. Like, I want to have the experience of the thing itself, or watch the movie and then get into the nitty gritty behind it. But some people like the clues at the top of the show.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned titles, because I have, as I mentioned with painting, I came up with this Everything Is Now. I've come up with concepts and I write them down in my notebook of, I guess they could be song titles, but I'm going to do paintings out of them. So I have a couple, I won't share them, but there are a couple that, that's a great title for a painting. I need to find and I have an idea for one of them. I need to find an image that would support that. But what's going to happen, so this is interesting, because those are going to have to be abstract, because I can't back into a photograph with a feeling like that. So if I have a concept like that, where I know that this is the story or the idea or the feeling that I know that I want to express, I got to find a way to get that. And it's not going to be, I can't be like going through my photo album, and that's not going to work that way. So I got to figure out how I'm going to do that.
I find sometimes that the structure the structure of having a line or a word, then the image almost sort of finds itself eventually. And maybe that's what the abstraction in painting is.
Yeah.
When you're writing words, when you're writing lyrics, the music is maybe the more abstract part of that, but the literal act of writing lyrics, those are words and they mean something, but sometimes it sort of gets spun around and comes out in a way that is unexpected, which is back to the element of surprise.
Right. Okay, great.
What else do I want to pick your brain about?
And you don't have to do more if you don't want to, if you feel like you've got everything, whatever you want to do.
Well, I have one more question that's just lit upon me, because I'm looking at your guitar sitting here by the chair.
Okay. Well, I don't play guitar, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but the guitar in the corner is to the contrary.
I know. It certainly looks very impressive. No, I started taking piano lessons, and
you told me that.
I found a guitar at like a yard sale, and I figured, I can do piano on the road. So I got a guitar figuring I could learn, 3 chords, a 1-4-5 progression or something, and then I could play around a campfire with my friends. Well, I didn't realize how hard it was to do chords, because I've never done the guitar. And I said, this is just going to be too much work. I'm not up for it. So I've never really used it.
Well, my question was going to be about like the interplay of your paintings are right there, and the guitar is right there, and the paintbrush is right there in the middle. And if this is something that you dip into sometimes as you're working.
I do with piano.
You do with
piano. So I do with piano.
Yeah.
So I will, if I want to take a break, I used to take a break and go on my phone. And now I go and come over here and do some piano.
It's interesting too, the element of like, these chords feel hard. I imagine when you started painting, some of the technical elements of the painting felt really hard too.
It was really hard.
Yeah.
It was really overwhelming. And it was a mental, it was really a mental task to stay focused.
Yeah.
Because I had a regular job, like with a really good salary, and I'm at home painting, and I'm thinking all of my former colleagues are like off on business trips in New York, and I am home in my apartment painting, and I'm not even a good painter. Like, am I crazy? And I'm like, no, the only way through this is you just have to do it. That's the only way to become a competent painter. And so it sucked and it was hard. And, and I was always just questioning myself.
But it feels like you knew that it was something that you really had to do. And it's not that maybe you don't really need to learn to play the guitar, and maybe you will get really good at playing the guitar. But it sounds like the painting was like pulling you forward.
It definitely
like,
was.
Okay, you feel like you're not good at this and this is really hard, but you have to do it.
Correct. So it was like, I felt that. And then the other half is me is like, Rick, are you crazy? Like, are you crazy that you're doing this? But luckily, everybody in my life were very supportive. Nobody said I was crazy, except one person at a cocktail party once.
Great.
Never forget it.
One doesn't.
Yeah, in 2016.
You
But
probably remember the month, too.
2013. But yeah, everyone else, including my family and friends, everyone was very supportive, which is really cool.
Well, there must have been something coming off of you that was clear that you were determined in some way to do it.
I think so. I think they saw the work, and I think that, not that the first paintings were that great, but I think they could see that, oh, okay, like there's definitely potential here.
What was the moment when you started exhibiting? Like, how long were you painting before there was a moment of kind of putting together a body of work, and what did that feel like?
Oh my goodness. So the first exhibit I had would have been when I moved to Chicago in 2018. Is that right? Wow. Okay. A body of work. Yes. And I was part of a group art studio down in Pilsen. And we had this incredible space. It was a former Ford Model T manufacturing plant. It was this gigantic space. I was part of it. And I did a group show there. And that was the first time that actually I assembled a bunch of work. And then I very soon after had a solo show at a restaurant right in Andersonville. I was so grateful that I was able to get that. And that was like a little bit later, maybe like 6 months later.
And what was the structure for you in terms of, again, was there a title? Was there you had presumably at that point accumulated quite a lot of pieces, and what were you pulling from, and how were you choosing those things?
Yeah, so it was really fun. So the first solo show I did was called Summer Wonder, and it was at this restaurant bar with a big, beautiful gallery, a long brick wall, and it was all about a summer adventure. And I kind of pieced this together, but it was some amusement park stuff. I had stuff from Coney Island. I had some beach houses, and some of them were really good quality. Some of them were not so great, but I had to go with it. And and I kind of had like this story that I put together, a narrative for the story, and they were all done in a sequence, like of getting ready and leaving the house and going to an amusement park and going to the beach, and what you would there's one of an old gas station that you passed on the way, and it was really fun. It was a really fun. The first time I was able to pull together a cohesive story with my art and have it in a space.
Yeah. I think that's what making a body of work, what's so cool about doing that is that you have an opportunity to really like thread the needle through very specific things and lead people on a narrative journey.
Yeah,
I find it also includes the exclusion of certain things. Mm-hmm. That's why I ask about like the decision of use this or not use this. They might be equally good, quote unquote, good things, but you're trying to tell a story, and what's the function of a particular painting or a particular song or a poem in the body of work, and where it's leading the audience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I think exclusion is a big part of it. What you don't include.
Yeah.
And It's so interesting the way our brains work because, learning, putting together shows like this has affected other areas of my creative life. Like I did that tea dance I mentioned to you. Mm-hmm. And, I was involved in all the creating the promotional content, and being a painter and like putting together a show really affects how you understand how people can consume creative content. And that really like affected how we approached that. It did for me.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like we don't want to be giving people too much. Like we need to keep it really a couple things and do those really well and consistently. And that's all we do. Because we want to make sure that we have like 1 or 2 or 3 messages and that's it. And painting is kind of like that. And even at the individual painting level, I think you saw a lot of these are very simple and they're almost like little poems. I don't want this to be too much. I want this to be really simple, and I want it to be a simple idea, maybe a main idea, and maybe a backup idea or feeling.
Do you have a narrative for this show, for Everything Is Now?
I don't think so. I think it's definitely about being freer in front of the canvas for me, and more colorful, more playful with color, and kind of letting go a little bit. There's
a real softness in them, like the colors of the sky and a lot of purple and these very they are really full of memory for me. I think the way that memory has that softness to it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Anything else? You got anything else for me?
What else do I have for you?
You don't have to.
I'm sure I have a million more questions. I always have more questions. But do they need to be asked right now? I think I have, this is why I asked you at the beginning about the spoiler alert, like I think a lot of the invitation you're talking about putting together the promotional material for a live event, part of the magic is the encounter of the audience into the space and not maybe giving away everything before they get in there.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first show where I haven't disclosed anything. I normally post a lot of preview images. I guess I technically may have done stuff a while ago, but as part of the promotion of the show, I have that one main image and that's it. And even the image that's on the card, that painting, that's not even a completed version. So it's going to be a big surprise for everybody. Yeah.
And so do you want to tell people where and how and for how long and
sure,
when we should be there and how we should appear?
So the show run. Can I see the card? Because I want to make sure. Yeah, you can. I want to make sure I get everything 100% accurate. Well, first of all, the opening is Saturday, February 8th from 4 to 6 p.m. in Newfane, Vermont at the Moore Free Library, Newfane, Vermont. The gallery is the Crowell Gallery, which is on the back of the library. Have you ever been to this gallery? Okay,
no, I've never been.
It's awesome. I am so excited. It's one of the prettiest spaces that I have ever shown my work at. And it's got 3 really large walls. And so I'm very excited about the space. So opening reception, Saturday, February 8th, 4 to 6. The show itself is running from February 4th, because that's the day after I install the stuff, to March 28th. So it's there basically February and March. And it's anytime the library is open. So you'd have to go to rickyartist.com and you can get the library hours if you want to go anytime other than the opening, which is, again, the February 8th, 4 to 6. I also I probably will be doing an event, at least one event, where I will have speakers come in. Maybe you can be one of them.
See if I have anything more to say on the subject.
What's that?
See if I have anything else to say on the subject.
But I will let everyone know. Just go to rickyartist.com to get. If I do decide to do something within that 2-month period, which I probably will.
But the 8th is the day that...
The February 8th, Saturday, 4 to 6, Newfane, Vermont, Moore Free Library. It's right in the middle of the village of Newfane, which is the most adorable New England, ridiculously adorable New England village.
And that'll be the 8th will be the moment of intentional gathering with people.
And it's 2 hours,
to
so
openness.
it's going to be intense. Yeah, that's when everyone will be there.
Will there be music? Will there be dancing?
There will not be dancing. No, there will not be.
I'm always trying to mix my mediums.
Hey, I am always down for different things, but I think I don't know, it's a short time frame. I'm a little bit constrained by what the library schedule and resources. So for 2 hours, I just want to keep it really simple. But yeah, cool.
Yeah, simplicity. That's part of the name of this particular
Simplicity.
game. Everything is now.
It is.
Well, it was cool to talk to you. Thank you for sitting with me.
Thank you for coming and doing this. I mean, it's so interesting. Every time I have a show, I always get somebody to come and interview me. And it's been completely different people every time. And I usually know them when I meet them. And when I met you, I'm like, she's the one that I want for this show.
Great.
So yeah, it's so interesting how that works. So, all right. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.